All right, San Antonio, it is approaching that noontime, which means we got to get this party started. You still feeling good here in the great city of San Antonio, Texas? It's time to give a big Lone Star welcome to 8-time All-NBA defensive player, 3-time world champion, one of the greatest perimeter defenders in the history of the game. Somebody you're no stranger to. Say hello to Bruce Bowen. Bruce. What's up, Bruce?
What's going on? What's up, San Antonio?
Yeah.
What's up, anybody else that's not from San Antonio?
Yeah, you heard the Philly right there from Ron. And we're going to take it back to a time when you weren't in San Antonio. We're going to go all the way back in the time machine, and let's talk about it because right now we know about the happy ending. But let's talk about the beginning of this. Times weren't always so easy for young Bruce Bowen. Lots of adversity, lots of different barriers and hurdles that you had to jump to get to eventually this location on this carpet here today at the Final Four. Let's go back to some of those times, and I'm sure they're not easy to talk about, but they are an important factor in your life. Tell us some about those challenges and what it was like to go through those.
Well, I think everybody has challenges in life, and unfortunately, a lot of the people see is the close to the finished product when it comes to sport. But I want you all to know that we all have choices to make in life. We can choose to be a victim of our circumstances, or we can choose to overcome those circumstances. All you have to do is continue to plug away. I always had this optimistic attitude. So for me, whenever tragedy or adversity hit, I was always thinking of, okay, how can I overcome this? What good can I find in this to make me a better individual?
And let's talk about some of those individuals that assisted you along the way, because it wasn't just you, right? I mean, even through some of those tough times, sometimes everyone needs a little assist once in a while, like a little glimmer of hope, because when things were really getting nasty, every once in a while your uncle would come through and to the rescue, right? And then there's many other individuals along the way that helped create the Bruce Bowen story that we know today.
Yeah, as we know, it takes a village. And I was fortunate to have surrogate family members. And with my mom and dad, that I call mom and dad, I met them when I was 19. But they gave me something that I didn't have in my early formative years. Yeah. And so, when you have someone or something that you can lean on, that always makes the situation that much better. And for all those that were there during those times, I harbor no ill will towards my biological family or anything like that. This is not a scenario where Bruce hates his mom, hates his dad. But I do understand they had situations going on in their own lives that they couldn't control. So I think that we're never left alone. It just becomes a situation where you truly find out how good some people can be to you, even if they're not of the same blood lineage.
Yeah, and when you had some of those people, it began in the Central Valley of California at Edison High School and, Fresno. And many people think of Southern California, Northern California. They don't think about that place in between, which provides, it's basically farms, right? It's mostly farms. And that's where you grew up before taking your talents down south to Cal State Fullerton. What was it like growing up from Merced to Fresno in the San Joaquin Valley?
I left Merced at 3. And a fun fact is that Ray Allen and Bruce Bowen were born in the same hospital. Now, I wish I would have got the incubation that he got, and maybe we'd have been talking about Jesus Shuttlesworth with Bruce. But all jokes aside, it's interesting that the Central San Joaquin Valley is heavily populated by a lot of minorities. And my best friends growing up were Mexican, Servando Pacheco and Jesus Pacheco. I used to spend time at their house, and his parents would take care of me like I was theirs. And so I have this taste for Mexican food, so I know true, authentic stuff because of what I got as a kid. Now, I know that has nothing to do with basketball, but it has so much to do with when you start going around different places, trying different things. Basketball has afforded me a lot. I've been able to get an education. I travel the world, and I get a chance to taste some fantastic foods. I was just in Hong Kong 2 weeks ago on behalf of the NBA, and I'm eating all this great food, and I'm like, I wouldn't have gotten this if it was all about my college days of chicken fingers and fries.
Right. And it's funny because the small things we take for granted sometimes, out of all the amazing highlights in your life, food. And it's not just because you enjoy that great food in Hong Kong. It probably takes you back to that special place, like you said, that authentic Mexican food. It cooked with love, pride, and hours of effort. So that taste resonates with you and brings back some of those positive images, I'm sure. And we talk about that. You take your talents down south. Cal State Fullerton, as a member of the Titan basketball team, all Big West, had a very successful career there. But then coming out of Cal State Fullerton, you weren't drafted. And then began the journey, the Midwest, France, and all points in between. Tell us a little bit about that journey and some of the people you met while you were overseas.
So, the draft. So there's a guy by the name of Tom Goodwin that came out of Fresno. He was a good baseball player, played with the Dodgers, and now I think he's coaching still in major leagues. But his brother represented me. So here it is. I have a local member that's representing me because I was not touted as the next star coming out of Cal State Fullerton. So he got me into the Golden State Summer League opportunity tryout. So I go, and after the third day, Donnie Nelson Jr. comes up to me and says, "Bruce, thanks for coming, man. We really appreciate you being here." I said, "Well, you know what? Tomorrow's going to be even better." And he kind of does a double take. He's like, "Yeah, there's not going to be a tomorrow for you." And I was like, oh, wait, I've been cut right now. Okay. So I get cut. I join Athletes in Action. And now they have a schedule. Excuse me. At the time, you would have these teams who go play Arizona, Duke, North Carolina, teams put together to kind of push the up-and-coming teams. So I'm looking at it from a standpoint, I talked about being optimistic. I'm like, ooh, I get to play Duke. I get to play Arizona. So I'm all in on that. But then I get a phone call from my agent, and he's like, "Hey, I got a paid gig for you in France." And I'm like, ooh, paid gig sounds good for a struggling guy out of college.
Absolutely.
So I go to Le Havre. Le Havre is in Normandy, France, and I'm playing there, and there's this kid that comes to the games, and his dad speaks English. And I'm like, wow, another guy speaks English because I'm terrible at French. And it happened to be Tony Parker. So Tony Parker used to come watch me play when I was in France. So I'm going to fast forward real quick all the way to this point. When I get to San Antonio, the Spurs draft this young 19-year-old or 18-year-old from France, and he says the name Tony Parker, and I'm like, is that the kid that I used to spend time with? And all? If I would have known he was that good then, I would have been more nice to him. But, utilizing France as an opportunity to continue to hone my skills. Sometimes when we don't get what we want, we immediately think that's a bad thing. I like to believe I need more time. I need more time to mature. There is something going on that I don't know about just yet, and I need a little bit more time to kind of further hone my skills. But at the flip side, you're in a European country. Why don't you go see what's available here? Get a chance to enjoy where you are in that moment. So many times we get boggled down because we have to do something. But what can you do to make that experience even that much more special? So I didn't have that attitude. I only wanted to go to London because they spoke English in London. So I get back and try out in the NBA, and I get cut. And so, again, what are you going to do now? It seems to be a theme that I'm going through that I hadn't experienced since I was 12. That was the last time I had actually been cut from a team.
Yeah.
So I go on and I keep fighting. I get to the Midwest in CBA and go through my struggles and trials and tribulations there. But I still feel like, this thing of basketball, I'm still learning things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I called my mom when I was in Besançon, France, and I said, "You know what, Mom? If this is what it is for me, I'll deal with it. I'll save up money. I'll come back home." She said, "That's fantastic." 3 weeks later, I get called up to the Miami Heat. So you never know what goes on in life, but I think that once we become content with certain things in life and we're no longer looking at what the Jones have or hating on someone else, how could he be in the NBA? I gave him 30. That's what happens sometimes. Yeah. But I was able to do that, and we're here now.
And let's delve on that for a little bit, because you probably thought, at least piece of you had to feel like, wow, I finally got there. That NBA called. This is the time. And those recurring themes of getting cut, those days are gone.
Gone.
And then you get to Miami Heat, the impressive stat line, 1 minute, 1 game, 1 block. But you got the block. At least it was a positive. It wasn't a turnover.
It was not
impressive,
a turnover.
and that optimism shines through as it did. And then a new story begins being written because, hey, you had that NBA experience, but you also realized I'm 13, 14 on these rosters. I got to find my way to get 6, 7, and eventually to that top 5.
Yeah, and it's a byproduct of staying late, showing up early. Stan Van Gundy always made it a point for me to be at practice 45 minutes ahead of everyone else to get shots and stay 45 minutes afterwards to get more shots. Now, in the NBA, you might think, well, hey, I'm good. I'm here. But it's about the staying factor. You don't get somewhere, especially at a high level, and just thinks that that's it. You get there, now you really try to find out how to separate yourself from where everyone else is. And it's through the hard work. You have to work hard no matter what, whether it's school, whether it's business, whether it's sport. You still have to continue the process of working hard.
Yeah, and it is that hard work and that staying ability that gave you those opportunities between 97 and 2001, because you were moving around quite a bit. And you were still trying to get that staying ability. But people said, this guy's a hard worker. He shows up, no problems. He's the kind of guy we want. And then even still, you're still trying to cling on to something that has some sense of family and consistency. And then after the craziness that was supposed to be Y2K, 2001. Where did we end up? Right here in the great city of San Antonio, Texas. We already know what happened, but tell us a little bit about that. Upon arriving, did you have any idea it could be even an inkling of what it was to become?
No, I was more concerned with how can I impact the team. Fortunately for me, what we don't realize is that you're always auditioning for something. In business, in sport, in the classroom, you're always auditioning for something. And during that time, even with me in Miami, Stan Van Gundy is a brother of Jeff Van Gundy. And so you don't know that Larry Brown is also connected with Pat Riley. Larry Brown's connected with Greg Popovich. And so even in my journeys, there's guys that are in a certain circle that understand what I do, and you just never know how someone's going to take a liking to you and say, hey, this kid is really enthusiastic about this, someone you need to give an opportunity to. And it can go vice versa. You can be a jerk, you can be a know-it-all, and someone can say, yeah, he has a talent, but his attitude is not right. And so me getting here, I knew that I had experience playing with big man, but now I got an opportunity to play with two future Hall of Famers, David Robinson and Tim Duncan. And so I tell people this all the time. I never knew that we were going to become what we became because of the leadership of Greg Popovich. The fact that he kept things so simple. His thing was, hey, we need to fly under the radar. And how do we fly under the radar? We stay diligent in what we do. Bruce, I want you to star in your role. I didn't bring you here to post up. I didn't bring you here to shoot this shot, shoot that shot. That had to be earned. But I was here for defense, and I understood that. People say, well, you were just a defender. I'm like, yeah, but I was on the floor. Yeah. See, I would use that with a lot of those stars that were scoring for Dallas and Phoenix and things like that. Whenever they would say things like, oh, you just a defender, I said, yeah, but you're going out of the game. I'm still on the floor. So in life, you want to be on the floor. So whatever it is you need to do to get on the floor, you do what you got to do to get on the floor.
Yeah, get on the floor and stay there. And in one of those championship seasons, you did so. In fact, you started all 83 games. What an impressive feat. And we talk about the defense, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that you can't leave them open from downtown either, because that's almost a 40% career click from beyond the arc in the NBA. Not an easy feat. Let's talk about that. And it was the ability to know, okay, my role is as a defender. That's my primary role. But if I'm open, you better watch out. That's 3 in the book.
It helps you to stay on the floor when now coaches can draw up a game plan where you can be implemented and understand that, hey, they may not leave Bruce now. And again, it was about continuously working. I was fortunate. I led the league in three-point field goal percentage in 2003. But that was because of all the work that started when I got to Miami Heat my very first time. So it wasn't by accident. But I'm not saying that in a sense that say, oh, I was always a good three-point shooter, because I wasn't. So the fact that now I was starting to understand that, okay, it's my due diligence at the craft. There's this saying that we have, keep your main thing the main thing, and everything will take care of itself. I've spent time in the gym. Brett Brown, who's a great friend of mine, would just come in there and just get shots with me get shots with me. And I could call him at 1 a.m. I remember during the Phoenix Sun series, I was like, Brett, I got this nervous energy. Let's go get some shots. He was like, let's go. And so when you have people that are willing to see you succeed in certain things, it makes it a pleasure, because it's nothing better than when you hear coaches talk about what a pleasure it was to coach a certain individual. It starts with their attitude and how they approach things, but more importantly, their work ethic. And I believed in that. I wanted everybody to see that I appreciated my time here in San Antonio. So even when Pop would call me off the bench, you notice I would run to the scorer's table. Running to the scorer's table was a little message for me, like, appreciate this time, because it's not guaranteed. So I was doing an interview with Matt Bonner, and Matt said, I used to run to the scorer's table because you and Jacques Vaughn used to run to the scorer's table. So my thoughts are, something's rubbing off, even without me telling him that.
Yeah, it's unique, because now I think about, you're probably not playing as much hoops, but you're definitely getting on the links quite a bit. And it's not the golfer, it's the clubs, right? Because some guys can drive it, that's great, but if you can't putt, you're not going to win the round. But if you can do both, so I love the fact that you didn't stop and say, you know what, I'm just going to rest my laurels and say I'm one of the greatest perimeter defenders ever. I'm good with that. No, I'm going to learn how to become one of the greatest three-point shooters in the game as well.
I tell people this. It's not about you saying how good you are at that moment. Let others do that kind of talk. Because at the end of the day, if you've already become satisfied with where you are in life when it comes to competition, then you've already lost. And so you have to keep going. No matter what it is, I tell my kids all the time, when I'm getting up early in the morning, getting them up early in the morning to just go work on things, it's not saying that they're going to be in the NBA. It's not saying that they're going to have a great career in sports. But I feel like I am planting seeds of work, so that when they go for that job interview and someone says no, they don't look at that and hang their head and like, oh, he said no, I'm not going to get the job. No, they're looking at it like, that means next opportunity. So let me get out of here so I can get to my next opportunity.
And speaking of opportunities, we just got to talk a little bit about that time when you did finally get here and find your basketball home in San Antonio. And we talk about full circle moments, and the fact that you reunited with Tony Parker, who was just a young kid at your first opportunity, and after that long speed dating occurrence of 10 years, 13 years before you found yourself home in San Antonio, what was it like? We talked about the two eventual Hall of Famers, but all those rosters had a lot of key players, from the Sean Elliott's to the Steve Smiths. I mean, you can go on and on, the Manus. I mean, there's so many different elements. But as you mentioned, the leadership and tutelage of Greg Popovich to utilize everyone with their strengths and get everyone to work as a team unit, that might not have been possible, because you don't need to be the most talented team. You got to get everyone to believe in the system and play together. How was he able to do that?
Well, you're able to buy in when the foundation players buy in. So when you understand that you're not above them, they're able to get coached. How can you not get coached if Tim Duncan is getting coached, if David Robinson is getting coached? And the beauty of Pop, he knew how, I think it's his connection with everyone, because he understood everyone's an individual, but we're all working for the same opportunity and goal in life, and that's to get a championship ring. So if he goes at Tim, you understand that, but he may go at David a little differently, but he's holding David accountable. He might go at Manu a little differently. Then he gets to that French guy and that old man that's playing with the French guy, and it goes another way. There are moments where Pop would say, look at these two on film, Laurel and Hardy, these two. And Tony would look at me and be like, what is Laurel and Hardy? And I'd have to explain to him. But he knew that he had that in us. And we understood that Pop loved us. And so when you understand those things, it makes it so much easier to just come in, because you also have teammates that are going to hold you accountable. So if you come in hanging your head, Dave might look at you and say, okay, what's going on? So you're worried about that, but we need you to do your part so that we can advance. So when you have someone quite like Dave Robinson, who is giving you a good tongue lashing, but he's saying it with love and concern, it's kind of like, my goodness, I don't ever want to have to deal with this again, because you're just too kind to talk to me like this in this soft, subtle way and get me to do what I need to do.
And we already know you collected 3 NBA championships here, and we talked about those things, but you decided to stay here. You've been a fixture in this community, philanthropy, involvement in the community, truly embracing it and loving it as if it's your very own. and you're a father as well. So you have the opportunity to kind of change the narrative and script that was written for you and put your children in a different position. What's it been like to embrace this community as your extended family here in San Antonio?
Well, the first thing I did when I first got here, I said, I am not Sean Elliott to replace him. Sean Elliott I was a big fan of Sean when he was at Arizona. And so to be able to come here and there was a reporter that said, do you feel like you're replacing him? I said, there is no replacing Sean. And the way that the community accepted me when I first got here, it's only in the making that I'm still here today. You have this place, and I say, some people are passionate about their team only when their team wins, but here in San Antonio, there's a genuineness. I say es el cariño. It's in the blood and the way that they show their love to you. I would be at HEB, which is a local grocery store, and the old lady would come up to me and be like, Bruce, you guys were in LA. I didn't like what you were doing, but you pulled it out. You made me stay up late. Don't you do that anymore. And that's the love. It's like I said earlier, I said it takes a village, but we have so much support here. And I couldn't ask for a better place nor better fans of the game, because whenever they see me, they just want to share with me how much they appreciate me. But in return, it's the fans that make players who they are. It's being able to go somewhere and all of a sudden, my wife at the time, she thought, why are they booing you? I thought you said they loved you here. But I said, no, baby. They're just putting an emphasis on the you. It's Bruce.
Let me hear it. I want everyone to hear it one more time. Oh, you never get tired of hearing that, right? And on top of all of it, before we let you say hello to the fans here, we talk about the moment, the underlying themes and factors, and you started off with great Mexican food, and you ended up with great Mexican food right here in San Antonio. And the fans love you. Final Four loves you. AT&T loves you. Let's give it up for the legend, Bruce Bowen, in the house. Now you're going to get to take a photo and see exactly right on cue. Thank you for joining us at AT&T. Now you're going to get a chance to take a photo, say hello. Just keep in mind we want to move people through the line as quickly as possible. Have your phones out and ready. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget Matt Painter, 215.